Greetings, YouTube. I've discussed career bias on this channel before. They've done studies where they have sent out resumes, the exact same resume, half of them with female names and half of them with male names, and the male resumes receive a more positive response than do the female. Even if the human resource person reading the resume is female, they still give the males a more favorable response than the female named resumes, even though the resumes themselves contain exactly the same work history and education and things like that. So we know that career bias is real in that regard, but it's hard to control a lot of the factors in these things. Transgender people are allowing us to have a window into that process in a way that nothing else ever has. Because while people are changing their gender identity, most of them are staying in their careers, and some even stay in the same job. So even though they're making a transition from a man to a woman or from a woman to a man, they're staying in the same position and with the same coworkers who now, not surprisingly, treat them differently. Women that have made the transition to men are finding that their words are listened to, that their ideas are being written down in a meeting, whereas in the past they weren't. Where even though their assertiveness level has not changed, when they were a woman, they were seen as overly aggressive, pushy. Whereas now that they're a man, they're seen as a take charge kind of guy, even though the aggressive level has not changed. On the other side of the coin, people who have gone from being male to rather a man to a woman are discovering that they're not listened to. That if someone questions a mathematical problem as a woman, the assumption is she's questioning it because she doesn't understand it. One transgender woman points out that men are given the default state of competent, while women are given the default state of incompetent. And until the man has proven that he's not competent, he's assumed to be competent, and until the woman can prove that she is competent, she is assumed to be incompetent. And that kind of double standard is prevalent everywhere in our world. And it's just that the transgender community is giving us an ability to look into that process in a way that we've never seen before, because they're changing a variable, their gender identity. Everything else is the same. So that's a great opportunity to see things in a different light. And it just reaffirms what we've known in the past, that gender bias is real. That people's careers are being stalled or ruined because women aren't listened to. It's assumed and expected that a man will interrupt or speak over someone. I have caught myself on more than one occasion interrupting a woman. Because amongst the men, often, he who speaks the loudest and the quickest will be the one that gets the attention of the group. That's not fair. It's not fair when it's done in a group of men. It's not fair when it's done in a mixed gender group. We need to make sure we don't do these things. We need to make sure that we control as many biases as possible so that we can treat everyone equally, regardless of their sex, gender, or orientation or gender identity. These factors should be transparent, and they aren't. And we know they're not. And thanks to the transgender community, we're getting a new insight into this that's helping us understand this mechanism a little better. And the more we know, the more we can help teach people to avoid doing it. But to be receptive to such teaching, people need to have an open mind. They need to understand that they also are exercising that bias, even if they think they're not. They need to be aware of that at all times. And it isn't easy. It isn't necessarily pleasant. It's not nice to think that, oh, I'm being biased here, aren't I? Because it makes us look at ourselves in a different light, and quite frankly, not a positive light on occasion. Because we do these things to each other, and we need to stop them. So I'm going to link to the article. It deals with people who are making the transition from one gender identity to another and their experiences in the job, the fields that they have worked in, regardless of what their gender identity is. So give it a read and tell me what you think. Have you ever experienced this kind of thing out there, whether you're male or female? Have you witnessed it if you're male? Do you do it if you're male? Have you experienced it if you're female? Any transgender people out there who have made the transition from man to woman or woman to man, what have your experiences been in the work environment? Are you listened to more or less? Do you think that your gender identity has anything to do with it? I want to know.